I think when we feel empowered with information, we can face those nasty, ugly things in life much better. And we become less uncomfortable and more driven to solve the problem.
Hey there, I'm Julie. Welcome to Uncomfy, a podcast about sticking with moments that challenge us. We share the stories of real people in moments that challenge their perspective. And instead of getting angry or shutting down, they stuck with the discomfort. They stayed curious and open, and they're glad they did. We hope these stories inspire you to stick with it too, because there is so much to gain. New empathy, deeper relationships, more clarity about our own views. I'm glad you're here. Now, let's get uncomfy. Here's a story about choosing to stop looking away from a difficult subject. I'm joined by Carrie Hill. She's a PR and marketing consultant. Her company is called Chill Consulting, and she reached out to us on TikTok with a great story to tell. Carrie, it's so great to have you. Welcome.
Hi, Julie. Thank you. It's so fun to be here, and I'm so happy we connected on TikTok.
Let's dive straight in. What brought about the stick with it moment where you had a choice to make? Do you bail or stay curious and a little uncomfy?
For me, my kind of stick with it moment came as a consultant to a nonprofit which serves the Children's Justice Center of Salt Lake County. And so the nonprofit is the Friends, and the Friends is the fundraising arm of this entity. As you can imagine, the Children's Justice Center is to bring justice to children who have been the victims of some abuse that ranges from physical to sexual, neglect, hunger, the whole gamut of things. And so coming into that space, not really ever having operated in it before, was uncomfortable in and of itself. Just the subject matter is uncomfortable. And so when I got into the work of the nonprofit, and you hear about the individual stories of some of the kids that have gone through the Children's Justice Center, it is uncomfortable. It's heartbreaking, as a matter of fact. And it's a challenging subject to stick with, period.
Did you have the choice to bail out and say, this is maybe too heavy, this isn't for me?
So as you mentioned earlier, I'm a contractor. So I always have the option to take a client or not take a client. And as I dug into the mission of the nonprofit, which is to turn trauma into resilience, I thought, okay, I'm gonna dig in and I'm gonna stick with it, and I'm gonna have to be really creative and innovative with how I talk about this subject matter in the public, because if it's uncomfortable for me, it's uncomfortable for them. And so I did take on the contract a little apprehensively at first. And there was a pivotal moment for me that really made me stick with this mission.
Tell us about that. I love pivotal moments.
Yes.
What happened, Carrie?
I love that. So I was reading a study which was actually done by the Utah Women in Leadership. And it was a study that said 40% of Utahns don't believe that sexual child abuse happens in our state. And I knew, looking at the studies and the numbers of the research that I had access to, that there are actually 40,000 cases of child abuse reported through children's justice centers throughout the state of Utah every year. And so for me to see a number that meant that our state is not recognizing that this is actually happening to our children, that was almost more uncomfortable for me, to realize how many people were not engaging with reality. And for me, that moment was really crucial in saying, okay, I have a bigger mission here than just focusing on the nonprofit itself. Every effort that I make from now on will be to educate people so that we can curtail this ignorance. I want to say that it's ignorance, but I think sometimes it's just fear of looking at what is real, and what you don't know makes you sometimes more uncomfortable than what you do know.
Did you feel personally called out? Like, oh, I not so long ago might have also been one of these people. Like,
Yes, there was a little bit of that. And I thank you for pointing that out. Let me just sit in that space for a minute because that's a little uncomfortable. But yeah, I think going into work with this nonprofit, I just wasn't aware of what the numbers were reflecting and what the actual cases of child abuse were within our state. And so as I became more and more ingrained in the mission of the organization, there was this kind of dig when I saw those numbers that said, oh my goodness, I can't believe that I just not very long ago might have been, I don't want to say that I would be a person that said it didn't happen, but I was a person that wasn't doing anything about it. Mm-hmm. And I think for me, that really struck a chord because this is the most vulnerable, precious population that we have. They're also the most defenseless population that we have. And how dare I sit in a space of knowing that this is happening in our world and not doing anything to align myself with an organization that is taking it on. And so then I became super ingrained in that mission. I had a personal connection to it. And so to see that there were so many other people turning away from it and not getting involved in the solution, I think I was almost offended by that somehow.
I think oftentimes with these very difficult topics, and we encounter this a lot on the other podcast I host at Top of Mind, where each one we're intentionally taking a topic that's thorny, that's challenging. I think sometimes some of these, especially when they're big, intractable problems where people are being harmed and it feels easy to feel powerless, I think sometimes looking away is a defense mechanism.
Yeah, and I think that is part of the dynamic on anything that feels uncomfortable. It's easier to look away and preserve what feels good for you. And that's a natural human response. We're fight or flight, right? We want to preserve what feels good. I think when we feel empowered with information, we can face those nasty, ugly things in life much better. And we become less uncomfortable and more driven to solve the problem. We have to become educated about whatever it is that we want to turn away from, or else nothing ever gets solved. We make no traction. And I do think the dauntingness of social problems is so big that it feels like even if you became educated, could you do anything about it?
Yeah. As a communications expert, is there something that you could share that you learned about making an uncomfortable topic more palatable, more hearable to people who are inclined to look away?
We really leaned in hard to the transformation of trauma into resilience. Yes, we can make the statement that these things are happening and we can give you the education and we can do everything that we can do in this space to empower you to feel compelled to donate or partner with us or sponsor with us. But at the end of the day, it's really about helping those kids be in a different space. And that's where we can lean in at. And so I was really gifted an opportunity to create a program, at least to start a program that is with community partners that offers kind of interim opportunities for kids to re-engage with childhood. And that's called the Thrive Lab, and that belongs to the Friends now. But it was an opportunity for kids to engage in dance, horse, equine therapy, things that were really positive on the flip side. And for me, Julie, that was like super motivating to say, yes, this problem is daunting and it's overwhelming and it's uncomfortable. And I hate that 40% of our state will not allow that this is happening in our neighborhoods. And so what am I going to do about it? How can I really impact this in a more positive space? And so I think that's key for any social construct. We're really good at just talking about it. We're really good at pointing out all the things that are wrong, but there are very few people that can come to a space of uncomfortability with a solution that somehow people can walk away from the table feeling good about. And so that was another part of this mission, was how do I turn this uncomfortableness into positivity and dedicated work?
Where does this take you next? What's the next uncomfortable topic that you are looking
Yeah.
to tackle?
I am actually focused on something that is near and dear to my heart, that is based off of my personal experience. And this is called InPowered. And it is a program specifically for divorced women who find themselves in financial hardship, having not been in the workforce for many, many years, now find themselves as the sole financial provider of their family. And because of my experience on the welfare program, my eyes were open to a lot of things that are easy to judge when you're sitting high up in your financial stability. I want to, if I can just sit right here with you for a second, Julie, I just want to share for those people who aren't familiar with what the journey of welfare looks like. For me, for a family of 5 people, I received $1,700 a month. Now, I don't know about you, but $1,700 a month is like probably not even half of most people's mortgages. And so how do you live on that? We always say, how do we get stuck in that cycle of generational poverty? And I think most people are appalled that we have mothers that are trying to raise children on $1,700 a month. And that's an uncomfortable topic, and I'm willing to take it on. And I wanted to solve the gap between the amount of time that mothers spend on welfare and the time that they can get back to gainfully being employed with health benefits. And so I have a partner. We've put this program together. We're working with one of the largest universities in the state to have this program be micro-certified for women so that they can take with them things like HubSpot, Google Suite, Canva, just the gamut of things that make them marketable after not being in the workforce for so long. And so that is really where I'm turning. And that is a really uncomfortable place to sit, not only for the individual sitting in it, but for somebody taking it on, because it's so nuanced. And something that I would say to the community at large is, if we see that there are systemic generational problems in our community that you can be a part of solving, don't wait for somebody else to figure out what that solution is. Lean into that yourself and become educated on the topic and align with other advocates and people that are doing this good work. And you will watch this uncomfortableness disappear over time, and you will become an empowered ambassador on behalf of that demographic of individuals that desperately need people to fight for them.
Carrie Hill is a PR and marketing strategist. Her firm is called Chill Consulting Agency. And you can learn more about her current work on TikTok. She is at Stop Divorce Driven Poverty. And we'll put a link to her ebook about the InPowered program, working to help divorced mothers get to a better place financially. We'll put that in the show notes as well. Carrie, thank you so much for your time and for sharing your story.
Thank you, Julie.
And thank you for getting uncomfy with us today. What is a stick with it experience you've had lately? Is there a topic that you have long tried to look away from but have recently begun to engage with more curiously and with a little more intent? How are you overcoming the sense of hopelessness or anger that maybe comes along with that effort? I'd love to hear about it. You can email uncomfy@byu.edu or find us on social media like Carrie did. And during our conversation, I mentioned Top of Mind briefly. That's my other podcast where each episode takes one tough topic. We look for perspectives that will challenge us to feel new empathy and gain more clarity about our own views. I'd love to have you add that to your podcast queue as well. It's a great companion to Uncomfy. You can find Top of Mind on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, all the places that you watch or listen. Uncomfy is a BYU radio podcast. Samuel Benson produces it, and the team includes Enrique Prado, James Hoops, Sam Payne, and Brenton Lewis. Our theme music was composed by Kelsey Ney. I'm Julie Rose. Can't wait to get uncomfy with you again next week. Hey there, friends. I want to take just a quick moment and dive into another gem of a podcast from the BYU radio family. It's The Lisa Show, hosted by Lisa Valentine Clark. She's a comedian, an actress, a believer, and a single mom. And she was even our very first guest on Uncomfy, you may remember, talking about a really uncomfortable conversation with a close friend of hers. So, what's The Lisa Show about? Well, it's kind of like sitting down to chat with your favorite people about what's going on in life, all of life's challenges. They tackle parenting, mental health, social issues, always with a lot of laughs, because it's Lisa. So if you are up for figuring out this crazy thing called life, give The Lisa Show a listen. You can find it anywhere you get your podcasts.